Hi there, everyone. I'm Andrea Change. I'm Executive Director for the Guild Literary Complex. And I want to give you an idea of where this started. Um, During the pandemic, there was so much going on, and I remember being struck by the events with George Floyd, the information about Breonna Taylor, the information that came out about Ahmaud Arbery, and then, of course, Jacob Blake. And every time they showed this on the news, I could feel it in my body. I could feel my body shaking. But up until recently, the people who I was hearing from weren't men. And I felt like I needed to know what they were thinking. And then it occurred to me that there's so many really great voices out here in the Chicagoland area of writers and singers and filmmakers and such. Um, I wanted to know, I wanted to be able to reach out and talk to them about it. And so there was an opportunity with One State and with the Illinois Arts Council to sort of put something together. And I sent in this proposal and was very pleased that this was something that was able to come about. What I hope will come from this is not only this conversation, but other conversations. Um, our men play a crucial role into what happens moving forward, and I don't think that we hear from them often enough. On this panel today, I have Nile Lansana, who's a poet, journalist, and teaching artist from the South Side of Chicago. He is part of the poetry ensemble Rebuild. And most recently in 2018, well, not most recently in 2018, but he was a Gwendolyn Brooks Open Mic Award winner. He's won other prizes since then, and I am confident, as probably the most junior person on this panel, there is more to come. Another person on the panel is Mario Smith, and I always jokingly call him the mayor of Hyde Park, and he'll say, "I'm not the mayor." But that's not what people say on the street. So Chicago poet, educator, producer, radio chat show host. He's been performing in the Chicagoland area for over 20 years. He is the host of News from the Service Entrance on WLPN Loopin Radio in Chicago and a contributor to WBEZ and Vocalo. He is also featured in the Breakbeat Poets book that was published by Haymarket Press. Jonathan Woods, who I had the pleasure of working with during our Gil Scott Heron event several years back, is a Chicago-based artist specializing in film, animation direction, and music production. He says his early fascination with both surrealist and African means of expression has fueled a wide variety of unique partnerships and projects over the last 30 years. Also, Avr Young, who is an interdisciplinary artist. He is a singer, he's a writer, he is a poet, he is a teacher, band leader, producer extraordinaire, currently the artist in residence at the Arts and Public Life at the University of Chicago. Most recently, his book of poetry, Neckbone, has received wide praise, including from Theaster Gates, who called him one of our greatest living street poets and one of the most important thinkers on the Black experience. In addition, his most recent album, Tubman, is being released, and it's amazingly beautiful and supremely funky. And then finally, I want to introduce Bayo Ojikutu, whose critically acclaimed On 47th Street Black received the Washington Prize for Fiction and Great American Book Award. His second novel, Free Burning, has been called gritty, lyrical, and intense by the Kirkus Book Review. Again, writer, teacher, and I can't tell you how pleased I am to have you all on this panel. Thank you so much. So knowing that you, and for right now, if you want to all unmute yourselves so we can sort of have an open conversation.
Woo, it was killing me.
I'm glad I was muted though.
Brothers, tell me.
Glad to be here. Glad to see all of you, Andrea included.
So tell me, how are you feeling? I mean, we know the circus that they called the debate last night occurred. Just goes.
Oh, that was great.
And then the last words, stand back and stand by. I'm still reeling over that. So tell me how you guys are feeling. How you coping with what's going on in the world right now?
Well,
Expensive sparkling water.
But you know what, Andrea, for real?
Because other than that,
I
I'll be
refuse.
drunk. Other than that, I'll be drunk.
I feel like I refuse to live in fear, and I'm no more jazzed up about the stand back, stand by thing than I was about it's good people on both sides, as I was about shithole countries, as I was about grabbing by the you know what, as I was about any of that stuff. It is what it is. I'm not jazzed up by that. Everything this man has done or said gets people to feel a certain way, except for feeling the way of he must go. So if it doesn't have, if the conversations aren't centered around dismantling white supremacy, I really don't have time for a conversation. And if people aren't putting their everything into participating on November 3rd, I guess I'm just happy-go-lucky and I'm still kicking
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
Right. I grew up around a bunch of black folks who said Pharaoh's army got drowned in the Red Sea. So that's basically where I'm at with it. I grew up on that. I was raised on that, and I'm a thorough believer in Pharaoh's army
That's a
drowned
product of
in the Red Sea.
Avery. Keep going, please. Keep
So Mary, don't weep.
Yes, sir.
Martha,
Yes, sir.
don't mourn.
Oh, that's my favorite track off the album, by the way. That one little bit. I think it's like a minute and a half, but that's my jam.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's what I have to recall. And when I say that, I was raised with the knowledge that there's things bigger than those who create policies, right?
Absolutely.
So we are bigger than those who create policies or those who are in power. And so we get to define how we are. Freedom may be appointed, but liberation is self-elected. And I choose to be liberated.
Absolutely. That's always a choice. As a first generation product of one of those shithole countries, and lifelong, most of my lifelong resident of Chicago, which as Minister Farrakhan called it, Mr. Trump, referred to Chicago in many different ways. So let me say this. Day after that election in 2016, I stepped outside my home. There was a woman, we moved to Oak Park some years ago. Stepped outside my home, we ran into one of my neighbors, had a conversation. She was on the brink of offering, how do you say, condolences or concern for me in particular regarding the likely fate of the country in light of Mr. Trump's election. I had to counter to this young lady, nice young lady, my neighbor. I had to counter this. I don't care what, frankly, as a man, as a Chicagoan, as the son of my father, the son of my parents, I don't care what those who would deign to support such a person as leader of their country think of me, frankly. I honestly don't. That's not guiding my life. It's not dictating who I am. That's the nature of liberation in my mind. What shocks me and will continue to shock me, which I can't explain to my son, nor do I expect my son to ever understand or accept, really, but he must learn to accept it, is this. Those who chose to support this man, those who chose to inaugurate this man, allow his inauguration and to allow his service as the head of their country, showed the world exactly what they think of themselves. That's the most provocative, poignant, and enlightening thing to me about this 4-year experience, about his emergence and his continued place in power. And if we don't carry forward from that, with that knowledge, hold on to that, remember that, never forget that going forward, then our liberation, as we come to understand, will always be challenged. We'll always be challenged not by the world outside, but by ourselves. We have to understand this country, what it promulgates itself as projecting as its exceptionalism, is actually often the exact opposite. And understand that, well, how we must define ourselves separate and distinct from that.
So, because the most recent one, and I apologize because I'm drawing a blank on what his name was, but this was in upstate New York in Rochester, but he was from Chicago, and all I could envision was that this man in the cold, clearly incapacitated mentally, and for whatever reason, whether he was drunk or whatever, and he was naked, and they didn't do anything. Like, they didn't do anything to bring comfort. How could he possibly be a danger? And they kept showing that same image, and I just wanted to know, you know, what's that experience like? I've never been pulled over by the police officers. So what's that like for you all? I mean, what was your most recent experience, or what have your experiences been like?
Right, I was about to say which time. what was that experience like? But I was about to ask. You know, it's different. It's different. It's real different. You know.
Yeah, well, but that's what I mean. How many times? How many times?
I mean, I like, honestly, and it's not. I swear, I'm not peddling strife. I can't count. I know it's been more times than on both of my hands. I know I do know that, and that was probably before I even got out of high school.
Wow.
So I'm been out of high school a whole bunch of years out of high school. But I mean, it's been, I mean, just something wrong with your tail light, to what you doing in Evanston? Driving. And I was actually driving through. I'll get back to the west side, officer, if you just let me be, I'll be up out of Evanston in like 10 minutes. I think probably one of the most, it's just, I can't even say the most craziest, but one I remember being, I remember pulling over to get an address correct. Because, you know, black folks tell you what color the dough is. They don't tell you the house. They don't tell you the number on the house. They say it's house on the red dough. Okay, all right. I just have to be on a block with 3 red doors. Now I just need to know which red door I knock on. And I'm parked, and the police come over. This is unmarked police. It's not even like squad cars. And dude goes, "What's wrong with your feet? Take your boots off." And we in cold snow up to like, we in cold snow up to like knee. And I'm looking at this dude like, we really about to be boys in the hood right now? we really about to do business in society right now. We about to be on that. And I mean, yeah, and then I was like, take off my shoes. And I'm like, for what? And that for what? Just led then to a prolonged, how you question me and la 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 la. And I'm like, you can't do nothing that you're trying to do without reason. And that I do know. And at this point, I'm gonna shut the fuck up. Because all my white lawyer friends say, shut the fuck up. And this is what I'm gonna do. But you're not gonna do what you think you're gonna do, because I don't know no better. But I do know better. And this bullshit about me getting out my damn shoes right now, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. It's just really weird. You want me to get out of my clothes, sir? To make you horny, baby? I don't know. But what I'm not about to do is get naked out here in this fucking cold, dude.
You know what? We did not see you open that can. I don't know what's in that can.
It's water. Y'all know I don't drink. I'm telling you, if I did drink anything harder than this water, I'd be drunk. This is straight up soda.
It's water. It's water. Absolutely water. I confirm.
Coca-Cola Classic either.
It is no more Coca-Cola.
Jonathan, you haven't said anything. Tell me, how's that been for you?
It's really concur with a lot of what folks have said. Most of things that everyone else had said. As a filmmaker, I spend a lot of my time creating a lot of the world, that I want to see, and there are as many different types of artists as there are in the Black community, as there are different types of people, different type of Black people. So a lot of my emphasis and a lot of things that I've always been attracted to have been like giving some sort of vision and questioning, you know, why and how things are the way that they are, and imagining what if things were turned just a little bit different, or what if things were just a little bit, you know, different. So so it's something where a lot of the people who I've worked with, a lot of the projects that I've been really super fortunate to work on, even during this pandemic, like I've been very fortunate because, like, as soon as everything kind of shut down, I got a call from an older client to actually develop, to work on a project where I was developing an entire world using 3D animation and things like this, and all of that. And the project is indeed a commentary, is a social commentary, but in a universe or in a world which is slightly askew from ours, so that, you know, can actually address certain things directly that, like, you know, if we tried to do, or address things in a fictional way, that if we try to address them directly, people might potentially be numb, or they'd say, oh, see, you're biased and things like this. Sometimes you can tell more truth in fiction than you can if you're just straight documentary, because it's like much easier for people to just tune out and those kinds of things, you know. In general, as far as so you know, I've been building, a lot of the people around me, you know, have been building, and you know, several of us have been on this planet now for a little while. Several of us grew up together and grew into adulthood together, and we've had we've been blessed to have an extremely wide variety of experiences, to the point where, you know, we've seen so many cycles and see so many things, you know, happen, that we have all found our own kind of ways of just sort of navigating through. And the thing which probably has been most difficult, I think, for all of us, has been the lack of ability to necessarily check in with each other from a physical standpoint, because so many of us, you know, spend time, you know, seeing Avery, you know, perform, and spend time just like rolling by the promontory just to talk to Mario for like a couple of minutes, and not being able to have that, you know, that has been probably like one of the things which has made this particular period, you know, difficult, you know, and we do the best that we can, you know, checking in with folks and seeing how, you know, everyone is dealing with these things. But honestly, it is something where a lot of what we have witnessed and seen since the start of this presidency and everything has just gotten so ludicrous that none of us who create and who write and who come up with ideas have been able to come close to anything that we've experienced. And it was like, well, okay, once we what to expect, the cycle of these of different folks, especially the president, you know, it's like, okay, well, it's gonna get crazier. It's gonna get, you know, and the other thing too, which is a real trip, you know, we've been yelling to white folks forever that this motherfucker is fucking crazy, and we still have commentators on the news saying, well, you know, he didn't say stand down, and we kind of don't understand. What's you know, we don't get it. And it's like, we've been screaming at y'all since this fool started, and he, you know, from his own actions, what specifically his attitude and policies. So why it is that a lot of, you know, white folks aren't just saying, you know what, this fool is crazy.
Because they crazy too.
Because they're crazy too.
They crazy too. This ain't him. This ain't no solo. It's not no solo he's singing. It's an orchestra.
It's a together thing.
It's an orchestra on colors.
Yeah, exactly.
The feigning, I was going to say, the feigning of disappointment in him last night was one of the funniest things I've seen on TV. And I watched a lot of funny things on television, but to act all of a sudden like, oh my God, I can't believe he didn't say, but you gotta be kidding me. Get out of here.
Yeah, right. He was holding back. So, but Jonathan, you bring up a good point, and there's also a question that somebody else raised in the Q&A. in terms of outlets and creativity, obviously we can't march the streets. We can't, well, we can march the streets. We are marching the streets. But in terms of being angry or whatever shades of feelings that we're feeling right now, how is this being impacted in your art? How is this work? Because I know, Avery, I think you released a chapbook, and I know, Mari, you've got your new show. So how are you, and you mentioned the film, but how are you, how is this outlet, how is your art an outlet for some of the things that are happening right now?
I would like to defer to the youngest member of this panel,
Right.
because I think his perspective in this is probably the most pure.
Absolutely.
As a young artist. And real quick, this is a mind trip like no other, because I remember when I was born, I am tripping that I'm on a panel with Nile Lansana.
Right.
This
Uncle
is
Ruckus.
blowing my mind that I am chilling with Uncle Ruckus today. That is all. Nile?
Thank you, Bob Mario. I appreciate that. One, like, I want to get to this conversation about power, right? Like, there's a difference between power and leadership. And when I think about people that I grew up around, like Baba Avery, like Baba Mario, like my mama, and like the storytelling community, Ashe in Chicago, like, they gave me power every single day. And they also showed me a way of how to, like, use the pain and do something with it, right? Because, like, I can't ignore the pain of this moment, but I know how to do something about it. And to me, that is power. To me, that is, like, my way of, like, exerting freedom in whatever sense that is, right? Like, every time I watch Baba Avery perform, like, that's freedom to me. Every time I like read poems, like, that's, like, my own way of, like, finding my freedom. And so I think that, like, creation and writing for me is my way of, like, how do I use this? How do I use this hurt and turn it into something holy? How do I use this pain and turn it into something powerful? But, like, I wouldn't know how to do that without people like Avery, without people like Bob Mario, without, like, the people I grew up around, and, like, specifically, like, the Black artists of our time and of, like, previous generations who, like, left things for me to learn from, who left texts for me to read, who left, like, movies for me to watch. And that's why it's, like, this legacy of art is, like, so important, because we're not just, like, writing poems. We're not just making films. We are, like, telling our stories so that somebody, from, like, when we pass on, so that somebody can peep that and be like, yo, all right, I know how to do something with this now. I can look to this and use it as a tool. So yeah, just when I think about, like, power in this moment, like, Trump ain't finna give me no power. Like, he don't, like, I know that. I done knew that. I don't look to him as a leader. I don't look to him as power, right? I look to the people that I know. They give me power every single day.
You better preach.
Say that, boy.
I'm
I
gonna
think
slip you that $5. I'm gonna slip you that $5 in your cash app.
Well said.
You know what?
That's another thing. I'm sorry. That's another thing, actually, also, that is extremely encouraging. When, like, you know, a lot of us definitely think about, you know, how it is we spend our time here. You know, as we were coming up as artists, we were wondering if we had anything, you know, valuable to say. It seemed valuable to us, but we weren't sure. And we got to this one point. Well, I'm sorry. I got to this one point where, and we were also wondering, like, man, is anyone coming up who's going to be interested in any of this kind of thing? And as I, you know, continue on as an artist, I realized that we are just simply actually part of this continuum of people who just have their eyes open and who are basically nothing more than just walking question marks. And that doesn't disappear from humanity, especially, you know, our humanity. And the fact that we're just like the next, you know, folks who are doing this, and there are going to be folks after us coming along, doing some things which are going to be completely breathtaking to us, feeding this continuum. And the same thing's gonna happen when they become like our age. So being part of the continuum, it is something where we are truly eternal, you know, and I get that a lot. I also learned that from Barbara Timuel, you know, who straight up told us, you know, like, he's like, one of the reasons I'm alive is because there's this rhythm that we as Black people have that we just tied into, which is eternal. And once you're tapped into that, you know, it just gives you life. You know?
You know what, Jonathan? It's the moment that the moments we have been in that define us as men, and then there's those moments as an artist that these moments define the context and the foundation of our art. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to present. It's a lot easier when you have something fuel your fire. The reason why hip hop in the 90s, the late 80s and the 90s was so popular because it was coming off the back of the Reagan era. There was something to talk about. The moment right now, I believe it's either Nina Simone, Avery, or Lena Horne, or somebody that said, or Toni Morrison even, about the art and the artist, how this moment dictates how you do your art, and that your art, exactly. If you take the moments we're in now, some of the greatest work we will ever see in our lifetime will be as a result of being in this moment with a pandemic, racial strife, a absolute Neanderthal nut in the White House, and a world that is changing and leaving the U.S. behind in a lot of respects. So seeing people like Nile being able to keep this going is most encouraging. The problem is we keep having these moments. We've never not had a moment of just singular peace. Without being able to know what that's like, we exist in as James Baldwin said, a constant state of rage every day. So I mean, I think as an artist, I have not been able to physically do what I want to do in terms of being able to create. But from my seat, being able to have my radio program, being able to be a part of different collectives, the opportunity to have D. Alexander and Kahari Bowden and the Junius Paul Quartet on the stage at the Promontory, creating what I like doing, those things keep me moving. But this moment doesn't stop, or it doesn't appear that it's going to stop anytime soon. And I think the Black artist, because I'm still seeing the moment on my watch. And I think that as we are artists, we have to figure out a way to develop.
So, Mario, you bring up a good point, and feeding into the conversation, or not feeding, but what are you feeding yourself right now? So what books?
I'm reading everything. I'm reading everything by everybody. I am making my bookshelf my temple. If you write something, I'm reading it, as I am trying to write a book myself. But I am really serious about reading everything from everybody. Everybody's book right now is getting some play.
I just want to make it clear that for me in my art practice, I don't assign myself to feel better about shit through my art. I don't, because my feelings is my business, and I have created the processes in which and then I can deal with my feelings. But my art, I hope, is the reflection of then what I think about any and everything, that in spite of and despite of, I still rock and roll through it. You know, that's my joint. I can be here, I can be under my damn bed if I was just thinking about the pain I'm going through because of ignorant motherfuckers. But that ain't what I choose to do with my life nor my art. All I give myself the assignment to do is tell the truth out of these hands, and make a representation that can only come out of these two hands. And therefore I am I work, like I said, I've been working with Uncle Ruckus, Mario, Jonathan. It's the thing about, like, we as Black men have to learn how to finesse our reactions into responses, because our reactions will kill us, will get us straight up murked up in this joint. Now, if we want to have this conversation about just how we navigate as Black men. Because I got to be him. I got to be him before I'm this artist. This motherfucker, when they pull me over, then go, oh, you're an artist. Go ahead. Go ahead. You're different.
I'm waiting on that day to happen.
You're different. You know. I don't have a card. I don't have a card to go. I'm not the regular Negro you shoot. I'm aberrant. I'm an aberrant artist. Let me free. I don't have a card. So, the thing is, art or being a creative has definitely helped the way in which I can finesse a reaction into a response, because art constantly helps me think about things. And that's the difference between a reaction and a response. A reaction is something you do without thought. You don't care. It feels good. It feels good. But to respond to something, you have to pause and think about how you would then address a thing. And that's the difference between.
So you guys are all you're all teachers of some sort. I mean, Nile has graduated from being a student to being a teacher. I don't know when that happened, but
Right.
He still looked 13 to me. You drew, kid boy? No. So, but what kind of programs? Because I know, Avery, you're doing something with Rebuild right now, and Bayo, I know you teach at University of Chicago. So what kind of programs do you think, because you bring up a good point, Avery, about reaction versus response, and not to upplay the looting and things like that, but that's reactionary. Like you said, that's reactionary. You go out, you want to break something because you're angry. So I'm not gonna say it's a reaction. I'm not gonna put it in the category of reaction, because it really is based upon the intent of the person that is out there that's out there doing it. I'm not gonna say, oh, the protest is a response and to loot is a reaction. There's room in both spaces where there could be that everything and beyond those things exist and fuel and inform those decisions that people make to do either or. I've seen people looting say, hey, you want a shoe? And look, but that's a very serious thing to consider, because in that moment, someone is thinking something that this action is beyond me, right? I'm looking out for somebody in this situation, and that could be because I feel in this moment nobody is looking out for us. So I'm going to look out for somebody, and although you think that what I'm doing right now is crazy, and I'm picking up something really, really, really heavy, and I'm busting the window out, I got me some shoes I ain't gonna pay for. But the fact that I go to somebody, are you straight? You need, what size shoe you wear? That speaks to a very, 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 very minute moment, but very significant moment of people. It's not just about people grabbing stuff, thinking about them and thinking about being destructive. We can't say when police react and shoot us and shoot and kill us from reaction, it's dressed up as a response, and that's why they don't get and that's why they don't get charged. This is why they don't get sent to jail for committing crimes, because all they can say is it was me responding to this irate nigga that I had my fucking knee in his fucking neck. So it's thick, Andrea. It's thick. No, you know what? Now, honestly, I gotta tell you, they only gave us an hour. So this conversation, and
dang,
I feel like there's so much more to say. There's like so much more to say. So, but I want.
Let me step in real quick.
Go ahead, Bayo.
Let me go right here from what my brother Avery had to say. It's important you raised an issue at the posing your question, something that we all tussle with as writers, as artists, as filmmakers, and people trying to make a living, right? It's always a tussle between your art, what you create, and your task as an instructor, lecturer, teacher, engaged working with the kids, right? So that's always a fight. But one thing that I've learned from teaching in academia and then working with kids in workshops throughout Chicago, throughout this country, is that we are all looking for light. We are all in the pursuit of light, seeking light and enlightenment, seeking a way forward. You know, we can only go a way forward through perceiving the presence of light and through light revelation. If we remember that about kids or young people you mentioned who are engaged in certain activities in response to this turmoil, remember that they too are seeking light. Remember this too, just earlier today, I was teaching class via this Zoom this virtual platform, right? It showed a movie, not old to me, it was made around the time that I was born. It was about Chicago blues. It featured several blues artists who'd been part of the Great Migration. Both blues musicians and blues comedians, blues artists of various stripes, all seeking light themselves. That's one of the reasons they came north, seeking glory bound, seeking lights. One of them was Dick Gregory, the great Dick Gregory, who just passed several years ago. He was a beacon for many of us in many ways, right? Something Dick Gregory talked about while discussing a notion that's sort of beyond the pale, I guess, of our considerations here today, is the poverty tax. The fact that being poor is more expensive than being wealthy. Being poor, trying to maintain as a person who's been afflicted by the economic structure in which we live, is more expensive materially, tangibly, than it is to maintain wealth in many ways, just from relative standpoint, the cost people bear in trying to live in that circumstance. He talked specifically, I think, in the most relevant way here. He talked about the neural responses, our biophysical responses to trying to struggle with that, the presence of poverty in our lives. There's a real response that carries forth from our bodies, our minds, our souls, our spirits. But it's something we struggle with, and it sometimes prevents us from seeing the light. But I think the blessing perhaps that we have as creators is that we have a way forward through that. And as Avery indicated, it's not about making me feel better. It's about getting over that hump. Here we have this struggle. Now I create something. Now I can see light beyond that neural response, right? So I don't have to resort to, or my first reflex isn't to destroy something. I can create something. That's the essence of light. I can now create something. So if we can find ways as artists and teachers to point that way for the youth as they're riding through their struggles, their tumult, their turmoil, then we've contributed to the shining of light, the beacon of light, and we've furthered this continuum that Mario talked about earlier, that Avery talked about earlier, that Jonathan talked about earlier. That's key. I think that's our task and understanding. That's where we engage the process of revolution. Revolution is a product of revelation. If we have light, then we can step forward and go forward thereby.
So that's amazing.
I'm going on a t-shirt. Revolution is the process of revelation. Come on.
Start printing it. Take Bayo.
Come on. Come on now.
Look, you heard it here first. So when the t-shirt come out, you got to put Bayo's name.
Hey, my residuals will come. My what Avery say, my white lawyers.
You're my lawyer on it.
But I gotta ask the question, because Avery, you talked about this, and Bayo, you talked about programming and such. In assessing the movement, where we are right now, and I have to give it up to the young people for being out in the streets consistently, in spite of. How do we keep this going in art? You know, I'm a firm believer that art is a pathway to empathy, especially literary art. It's a pathway to empathy, to get people to understand. Sometimes you, like you said, Jonathan, it has to be wrapped in fiction. It has to be wrapped in a different form. So how do we maintain this? How do we keep this movement going through our art?
I will borrow a term that Avery has used. First of all, stop taking our art for granted and thinking that you can just give us a check and we cool with that. We have to use our art as advocates for change, not saying it, but living it and doing it. If you want a piece from me, if I'm a sculptor and I can really get down and I'm a bad man, you want something from me and you're going to pay me an exorbitant amount of money, I, as an artist, part of my deal is, that's nice, but you closed 47 schools in Chicago. Can you repurpose one of these schools that you closed, and then you can have my art? Your check is not as important to me as my community is. And when we stop, and we, I mean the collective Black community, we, and Latino community, we, when we stop letting our art be bartered and not have any say in the bartering process, of the real community part dies. If we're going to be artists and be willing to just give this shit away, then this panel is useless.
Right.
If you want something from me and I got something that's good and you want it, you can have it. But I want something that's going to change the way my community looks in return. If there's no balance, there's no art.
Right. Like,
that's the other t-shirt. That's the other t-shirt.
like I'm on a full ride at UW-Madison for poems on a poetry scholarship. And UW-Madison just got named like one of the 10th rate schools in the country, right? But I'm not just gonna sit here and be back and be grateful and not talk about the fact that y'all are risking, especially like your students' lives by opening these dorms and opening these classes right now. I'm not gonna sit back and not call out the fact that y'all hanging nooses on campus and writing racial slurs on dorms and spitting at Black folk at y'all school. I'm not just gonna sit here and shut up just because y'all gave me a full ride. Nah, that's not how I roll. I'm from Chicago. Like, that's not how I roll, right? I'm gonna use my art as a tool to do that. I'm gonna use my art as a tool to disrupt and use it as a tool to call y'all out. Cause I'm not just gonna sit here and be quiet and be grateful for this thing y'all gave me. Like, no.
Right. And I mean, and what does nephew also has to navigate down at the school with a full ride, right?
Right.
I don't know if y'all ever been to Madison, Wisconsin, but Madison ain't that friendly.
Not at all.
To my skin folk. You know,
You deep in the country.
Right. It's wild stuff, right?
It's a lovely part of America, but it is not
right.
for everybody.
And I mean, but this is the dance that people of color, Black men, Black women, Black trans, LGBT, all the intersections. Sometimes you have to learn to navigate in spaces where everything in the spaces is constructed against you, and that is that's heavy.
Say that again,
right?
please. Please say that again. You said
you have to learn to navigate in these spaces that are and everything in these spaces that builds these spaces are constructed against you, and that is where it's heavy. This is where you're getting this thing, especially with this generation, of like, what the fuck? What all them goddamn water hoses for on all them folk in the 60s, and we still dealing with this shit now, right?
It's like you're a human being in a crazy straw, and you have to figure a way to get out of that straw. That is your constriction, but you got to get out.
So
you
I
got
got a couple questions.
I wish I had answers, but everybody has their own journey about the straw. Like I said, for me, it's to liberate oneself. When you wait on somebody to say, "Oh, it's okay for you to be you," you gonna never get that okay. Because there's always somebody that's gonna speak against what and who you are, right? And if they're in power, they have an advantage of you that you don't. So you got to learn. Pharaoh's army got drowned in the Red Sea. I'm standing on something that's way more badass than that motherfucker right there. And when I know that of myself, I do things to get up out of that straw. It's because it's for me at that point. It's dire. I get up out of here, and you find a way. If I gotta eat through this motherfucker to get up out of here, I won't eat through it. I'm just this is
so. I've got a couple questions from our audience, and so you've answered it a little bit. Like I think now you touched on it a little bit. It says, what kind of programs or resources? do you wish, what kinds of programs or programming or resources do you wish schools or community organizations made available to you growing up help shape your experience as citizens and artists? You mentioned, Nile, the time that you spent with Rebuild, working with Avr Young and working with Mario. Is there something that's specific that happened with you, and I'm asking this to the group, that you, a program that you were in previously that you wish still existed or that you could give to kids now?
I wish that somebody would have come to my school from years ago and doing what Avery does and doing what Nile does and doing what I do and what Jonathan and Bayo does. I went to Myra Bradwell Elementary, Luella Elementary, John D. Shoup. I went to St. Carthage. I went to Chicago Vocational. If anybody would have presented, like, we made these, let me not say that because I don't want anybody to get mad. My former employers either. But we made these programs that exist now great.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. They could say what they want. They could put me on another do not hire list. I don't give a shit. We made these programs great. And because we made these programs great, if we continue to be able to go to these schools and talk to these young men and women, had that happened in 1970, whatever, until I got out of high school, I don't know what kind of person I would be. I'm sure I would be much more open person, much more liberated in terms of being receptive to art and being receptive to just what change looks like. But that would be my thing. If there was a Young Chicago Authors or a Guild Complex back then, yeah, that would have been outstanding. That's what Avr Young come to my school back then, it would have been the best thing ever. It really would have been. I think the reverence that we have for each other.
Those moments exist with individuals, not necessarily with organizations. Like there's a Kumba Links and there's a YCA, but everybody doesn't have access to those types of organizations.
It's really just as simple as providing the room for Kumba Links. Kumba Links ain't going nowhere. They there to go to your school. You just got to ask them to come. They've been doing this for 20 years. They perceive everybody. It's just a matter of saying to Kumba Links, come to my school.
But I named two organizations that are fairly well known. What other organizations are out there?
It's a bunch. It's shoot. You got me. Little Black Pearl. There's deeply rooted. There's Chocolate Chip Theater. What Sydney Chapman is doing with the Fly Girls with the what's the name?
The Hipley Ballet Group.
Yeah,
there's one movie. Sydney Chapman is working with the little black girls with the capes. I can't think of the name.
Black Girls Fly.
Yeah, that's it.
Black Girls Fly.
Black Girls
Fly. That is there are a lot of programs. I mean, like I said, and I'm answering this question. I really was blessed to have to have a group of adults mentored me to make sure that I was exposed and had as much access to the wealth of the culture, education, and art that was in Chicago and worldwide. You know, so it was let Mary Booker have it. I would have just went to church Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that, you know, that was but not to downgrade the church. I love anybody that see me perform understand how much church I done soaked up and get to the people. So my
all of it.
So you know, and this is where, you know, and historically and culturally, the church is where we've moved politically and how we as people move politically. So I'm not downgrading the church, but my access and exposure to the other things would go back to what Jonathan was talking about. We're not a monolith. There's just, it's when I say Black people come in Megan Thee Stallion, and they come in Tracy Chapman, and they come in all there is in between. All there is in between. And so my thing for anybody is to learn all that we are. learn all that we are. And sometimes that is some discovery stuff. I would not know who Nina Simone is if just listening to WGCI. I had to go to a record store.
Okay, look.
I had to go to the record store. I had to dig into some crates.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody don't know who Gladys Knight and Patti LaBelle are, so they had to do a versus.
Right.
They had to know.
Excellent point about Nina. Excellent point, brother.
Right, and you can wait on people to give you information, or you can go find it. I would like to, in this moment, I would just like to encourage the exploration of information. Because if we sit and wait on people to give us things, people give you what they want to have. When people go, oh, we want a Starbucks in our community. No, you don't. Because when you get a Starbucks in your community, that means they about to kick your ass out of it. Because they didn't build that Starbucks for you to have coffee. They built that Starbucks to say, hey, corporations, put some money in here. We about to put some people that's going to be able to afford this rent we about to jack up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 4:10. Let me just say this. I'm going to ask you guys a couple more questions, but let me just start saying first of all how grateful I am to the Arts Alliance for providing this forum, and thank you to them and thank you to you all. They have also they have an opening on Friday from 3:15 to 5 o'clock in the conference, and they were like, if y'all want to keep talking. But, I don't know what everybody's time is like. If I can corral you all for another hour and a half on Friday. But that's if there's more to talk about, then I would love to do it. I want to ask, because this is an event with the Guild Literary Complex. And Mario mentioned the Guild Literary Complex. It's a place that's always close to my heart because I've been a volunteer with them for over 20 years and currently working as the executive director. This is an organization that has, and it's at its best, highlighted marginalized voices. A lot of times, those are people of color. But besides the Guild Complex, pick one organization that you can think of that needs more help. The Guild could always use more help. But what other organizations do you think need to be saved or preserved or magnified? Besides the Guild Complex, one of the organizations that I think that we don't talk about enough is Obasi. That was sort of my, I don't want to say origin story, but I remember hearing that word, trying to figure out what it was. And when I found out what it was like this secret society almost that brought me, but I mean, it was like folk, you know what I mean? And it was like folk doing this kind of good work. So and part of that is Third World Press. So what organizations can we highlight that need to be saved, need to be uplifted, need to be magnified?
You mentioned two essential, Obasi and Third World Press, absolutely. Those would be at the pinnacle of this. But let me say one I would speak to from a personal standpoint, the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame, because they're seeking to do many things in the community, working with schools, engaging kids. But then along with that, but let me also say, I think Avery, it might have been Mario pointing this out as well, this idea that, the schools were closed throughout the city, particularly on the south side, particularly on the west side. That's been going on more than 10 years now, right? So a great deal of capital was saved by the city in closing a slew of buildings and displacing a swath of kids from their schools. That money went somewhere. At some juncture, particularly we're facing now this still new administration, at some juncture, that capital must be found and reinvested in school programming like this for kids, it's people coming into whatever schools are left, into the spaces that do exist, whether it's the unused spaces in these new charter schools, to engage them on the aesthetic front. There must be a program, I would hope, somewhere citywide. I don't know what it is, that brings music back to the student. This is a segue from the conversation about Nina Simone, about the importance of music to the culture, to the community, and the manner in which music informs and inspires all the art that we do. That's for everybody on this panel. Music has informed us incredibly, gives us a language to put on paper, to put on screen, to put into a microphone. If that's not brought back to kids, we're in a bad place, because that music then endows young people to think about the world in a different, broader, more endowed way. We're failing young people if they're not engaging music and what it truly means, what it truly is as an aesthetic. It's one of the core values of our humanity, being able to engage and think about what music is. So if there's a program that someone knows that can bring music from an instrumentation standpoint, of composition standpoint, to kids in the ways that Phillips High School and DuSable used to do, that would be beautiful.
It's unfortunate we couldn't save Johnson Publishing, and it would be unfortunate when we are unable to save the DuSable Museum. I think the most important resource in Chicago for Black people right now is underdeveloped, and I believe it is underrespected. And the DuSable Museum deserves the opportunity to have our love all over it. We are doing a poor job as a community of backing them up. They're doing what they can do, but there's so much more they could do if they had more support.
Jonathan, what about you?
Yeah, I would say also I definitely agree with DuSable, Mario about that, because that is a place definitely that it is like a hub, so to put it, for so much. They do so much. They bring in so many different diverse folks, in and expose us to us in so many diverse, ways and everything. I would also say two other organizations, and we spoke a little bit about music. I think the AACM, Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, I think that they need to be, continue to be supported. And I also think the Community Film Workshop that teaches film, that they definitely, consistently, can use help. And any organization that's out here really that just simply helps younger people to keep the question mark on, to just, to keep always, asking, to give kids the freedom to actually ask questions. Because, as we grow up, we get this acculturation process that happens to us where we just learn after a while to just shut the fuck up because we just get beat down so much whenever we express looking at things, slightly differently. And if that one aspect of us stays open and stays, lit and keeps going, and we teach people how to do that and teach folks how to reason and give them the freedom that the process that they go through in questioning does not make them crazy, that it's something that actually makes them sane. If we, just simply share that one thing, that one lesson more than anything else, then we will continue to progress. Yeah.
I mean, only thing I don't think there's I wouldn't tell you one organization. What I would say that it's vital that we understand that Chicago is an entree, but it has sides. And we have to realize that you need to support a thing out west, you need to support a thing out south, you need to support a thing up north, you need to support some shit over here, over there, because Chicago is a very vast city. It is one of the only cities in the whole entire world that you can drive for a whole fucking hour and still be in the same city. It's unique in that way. There's places in the world
south, east, and west.
Right. There's places in the world you drive for an hour, you're in a whole other country. Let alone still in the same city. And we also have to understand the nature of the beast is, yes, there are wonderful things, cultural institutions that happen on the south side, but Black people just ain't on the south side of Chicago. Black people on the west side of Chicago is struggling because ain't no institution over here, because people always want to say, well, it belongs south, it belongs south, it belongs south, it belongs south. And I ain't got no problem with going, y'all already know I'm all over the city.
We're good.
I'm all southeast, but I'm a west side baby true and through. And I understand, the deficiency on our way. So my thing about, we have to invest in all of these communities. Chicago is divided in a grid, and each of those grids deserve a space
Absolutely.
Art and exploration, because again, art only speaks to half of what we got to do, right? We got to learn. We just because we're in Chicago don't mean we ain't supposed to know what a collard green and a mustard green is. We got to know this dirt. We got to know to plant something. We got to know. There's a lot of things we have to learn to become self-sufficient as people, so we won't have to depend on Jewel Man. And the reason why we get treated the way we do is because we got to depend on Pharaoh for so much shit.
So listen.
The day we don't need Pharaoh, Pharaoh is going to change his whole attitude towards us. But as long as you keep knocking on Pharaoh door, talking about, can I please have this? Can I please have that? Pharaoh gonna look at you and be like, whatever. Whatever.
So listen, we are already 5 minutes over our time.
Yeah.
And just getting started, honestly. There's so much more to talk about, so many other things to deepen and just touching on it. And truth of the matter is that if it were up to me, it would have been an additional 5 people on this panel, just because you want to hear from even more folks. Nile, I want to say I appreciate your perspective as the junior member, but up and coming, we all gonna be like, well, when he was a kid, I knew Nile did this. So when greatness comes to you,
greatness is already here.
Oh,
don't sleep on this
good.
No.
This dude,
he okay.
This dude is great from the gate.
From the beginning.
He done already made more money as a poet getting a full ride at school. So
he done did way more as a poet at his age
than anybody. Anybody.
Like, so that's just real deal Holyfield. But what? And
again,
you know, this dude, 22. 22. Lollapalooza. Gwendolyn Brooks. Oh, the Kennedy on the Kennedy stage.
I know he a proud uncle, so you can
look and your uncle.
Yeah, and he's an uncle.
And your uncle, and he like mouth sauce from Harold's, so he's complete.
Right.
What I'm saying is,
we would disown you if you didn't like the mouth sauce.
Even what he has accomplished, I say, even what he's accomplished at 22, it's people out here doing what he do that wish they had about 2 of those things on his resume. So he the junior, but he definitely a heavyweight.
I gotta find a way to put the fact.
I gotta give nephew credit what credit is due. He already know how I get down. I gotta figure out
a way. I have to figure out a way to put this moment on my bio, because I'm telling you, I remember when the boy was born. To be able to sit on a panel and discuss this with him,
right,
is the best thing I've done in years.
Right.
And
you can't talk about Nile and leave out Onam, because Onam is
my thing is, I remember being on the panel or in a conversation with Courage, with his father, and we were talking about the things that you teach your black boys, and we was kind of on opposing positions on one of the person like, well, I'm not gonna teach them to be aware of the police because I don't want them to think that. Now, what you want them to think and what they're going to experience we have learned are 2 different situations. You will want to prepare them for what they will have to go through and what they have to navigate, as opposed to have them willy-nilly out here in this world. It does not matter where you are. You can move to Vermont, but you're gonna be black in Vermont, and actually even more so. Even more so. So as you'll be on the south side of Chicago, because everybody's black on the south side of Chicago, If you take your black ass to Vermont talking about you want a better life and a better experience, and you don't want your son or your daughter to understand the limitations of their skin, well then you a fool. Because the skin is all of my possibilities, not my limitation. Come on now.
Andrew's revealing a whole lot in this document. You told you what was on the paper.
This joint right here is about wealth in the world right here.
They don't hear you. They don't hear you.
I wouldn't take nothing. I would not take nothing from growing up as black as I did in this joint and in this time. I wouldn't take nothing from it.
So on that, Brother Avery, I want to say thank you to Brother Bayo, writer, teacher, author, Mr. Avr Young, singer, artist, poet, teacher, man, troublemaker, man.
Emperor Jones. I'm Emperor Jones.
Emperor Jones. Nile Lansana, of greatness already. He done already said your resume. I ain't got to say it no more.
Thank you so much.
Mario of Lupin Radio, news from the service entrance. You can find him at the promontory if you need to look him up.
Absolutely, we're back. Promontory's coming back, baby. Finally. Look at the world. Look at us. Look at what happened.
I love your work, so please let us know when the film comes out. We appreciate it. We had an audience of close to 90 people, so a lot of folks got a chance to hear your words.
It was over 90 at one point. I looked down.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody.
Hey, thank you all. Thank you all.
And if there's ever an opportunity for us to get together and have this or continue this conversation again, you, of course, all are invited. So thank you so much.
Look forward to it.
On behalf of the Guild Complex and One State Conference for the Arts with the Arts Alliance of Illinois, thank you all, and have a good rest of your day.
Power to the people. Free them all.
Peace.
Big Jonathan. Nile! My man!
Young Lansana. Nile, seriously, man. Is the young man still there? Or did he break up?
Yeah, absolutely. Right there.
Now, hey, dude, there's two things, man. A, tell your parents I said hello, please, okay?
Absolutely.
Give them my best and my love.
His mom is on here.
Right up there in Wisconsin, look up a brother for me named John Eason. He's in sociology, okay? Tell him Bayo sent you. Tell him Bayo sent you, okay? He's a good brother. He'll look out for you, okay?
I got you. Thank you so much.
Do well, brother, okay?
Somebody mentioned, I think Yazoo mentioned it earlier. Yeah, we really, and Mario and I have been talking about this with the work that we're doing with the Wide Awake Chicago. That this idea of this green book and what just Baba Bayo just did right now. That green book thing, that like this is who you look up, gonna handle you because you say my name, he got you. That is what we got. Really,
that's where we're going. Sure.
Real.
That green book thing, that green book thing we have with each other. That's what we got to get back to. We got to get back to a space when I can say, look up that brother and tell him that Baba Avery sent you.
It's coming. It's coming.
And when you get there, all you got to say
is Avery sent you. That's right. It's coming. It's coming.
So yeah, Brother Mario and I, we're with a group of folks that try to figure that out. So Bayo, we gonna holler at you. We gonna holler at you about who.
My brother.
You know Avery name. Everybody know Avery.
I don't know what they know, but they know.
Everybody know Avery. They're gonna be like, who? Maybe text Avery and say.
That exchange that happened right there. Like I said, Mario and I are working with a group of folks out of Chicago that are really trying to institute that notion of how we really begin to navigate in this space. And that system, people don't talk about it the way they should. But that system was very significant. We have absolutely no idea what we have.
I gotta roll out, y'all. Peace.
Right. What we have now as a community.
Oh, but y'all playing and the record done turned off. Y'all still playing and the record done turned off.
We all good. We all good. I'm about to spend a couple of minutes in this feedback session to get some tea.
I'm about to get on with my thing, so I'll talk to y'all.
John, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Really well done.
Bayo, thank you.
All right.
Wow. Much love.
I gotta go right back. Appreciate you.